but they shows up every now and then. Well, while they was a-talking, Mr. Freezewell come up. Why, if you've heard some other stories about Jack, there's fellows all around there that could do things well. And Mr. Freezewell, well, he could freeze things well. They got to talking about it, and Mr. Freezewell says, "Nah, I don't think even I know where he lives at, but I'll do my best tonight to see if I can't get some information for you, Jack." Jack says, "Oh, that'd be good, it would. I'll be back down here tomorrow and until you can tell me what you know." So that night, Mr. Freezewell went out to put out a trap. Why, he got up and down the river, and he was going to bring in a cold winter wind, and it was going to freeze real hard, and he was just going to dust all the riverbanks and all the woods leading up and in it with just a little bit of snow. And that way, if there was anybody coming in to do any washing or anybody going back out, and it being Saturday, that's when everybody got some of that done, he'd know exactly where they were, and he'd be able to find them, follow them home. And so he got it good and cold. Why, it got so cold that people didn't want to go out. But sure enough, there was one fella who was out hunting turkey, and he was trying his best to get out there. Whenever that cold started a coming in, he started looking for shelter. He got up where he hadn't been before, kept following up that river, looking for a big log or a big rock or a little bit of a cave or a crack or something to get out of that storm. Why, it was a howling and it was a blowing, and he got way up inside there and found him a big old holler tree, and he just sort of snuggled up into it, and he was looking out down by the riverbank, hoping that a bunch of turkey might come by so he could get him some for his family. Because, boy, it was getting that time of year when people like to be eating turkey. Why, he was sitting there and watching, and as he watched, three great big old wolves come up out of the woods. Why, he got to be scared, and he knew they'd start sniffing, and if they smelled him out, he was done for, didn't know what to do. He just hunkered down a little bit, but he just couldn't wait for them to come, and so he peeked one eye out to see what was going on, and when he looked down there, he didn't see three wolves, but he saw three beautiful girls. Why, they had red hair, and they was beautiful looking. And they got to bathing in the river, washing off and everything. Of course, they still had their intimates on, and so they just got down there and got all clean, and he knew he shouldn't even be there or seeing anything like that, and so he ducked down again, and he just waited till he couldn't hear anything no more, and whenever things was gone, why, he just lit out. He was afraid he might run into them wolves, and so he just made a beeline down the river, way on down to where he could find a place to get out so he could get up to his own home. Why, when he got there, that cold wind had blowed hard. Why, whenever Mr. Freezewell was looking out there and seen them tracks, why, he was going up and down the river too, and he saw them wolf prints down there, but he didn't see no girl prints. And then he started looking around, and he saw that man's tracks going down, and he had followed him to his house. Why, that night, that man was trying to tell his wife the adventure he had had. He got to saying about how he was out there and the storm had come in and he was hiding for himself and he was hoping to find turkey. And she was saying, "Well, you're a good hunter. Where's the turkey at?" He goes, "Oh, I didn't see no turkey." She said, "Well, if you didn't see turkey, what did you see?" He said, "I saw wolves." She says, "Oh my, oh my." He goes, but then they was gone and I saw girls. They was down there bathing." "You were spying on girls bathing? Oh, let me tell you, you are in trouble. No, you should have got out of there quick if you saw anything like that. That is a wrong thing to be doing. Why, he was upset. He couldn't finish his story. She was upset. She went in and got her old rolling pin, and she was pounding it around after him, and he was trying to get out. He just runned around. He says, "Oh, I don't know what to do." He went on out there to his barn, and he was just trying to hide out there. And Mr. Freeswell didn't like what he was hearing, but he did hear about them red-headed girls from him, and he knew that that was them daughters of that old red-bearded man. But he didn't like that fella spying on him what it sounded like, and so he made his old barn freeze up good. Why, that was a fella who loved cider, and he just froze it until that cider was a solid block of ice inside them old barrels that he had it in. And he was so upset by trying to get out there, and he thought he might have himself a drink, and there it was frozen like a block, and he didn't know what to do, and he was pretty upset with it. Why, he just let him be upset, said it deserved him right, and Mr. Freeswell went on back to his place. Next day, just like they was saying it was supposed to be, why, Jack showed up at Mr. Hemphill's store, and Mr. Webster was there, and after a while come up Mr. Freeswell. He says, "Oh, what you find out? Did you find out about them girls?" He goes, "Oh, I found out something. Didn't find out where they live for you, Jack, but I did find a fella who knows where they go to bathe. And if you might catch them there, you might be able to follow them home. But I'll tell you now, you don't be looking or watching or nothing like that. No, sirree." Jack swore and crossed his heart that he wouldn't do nothing like that. So Jack got to that fella was. He goes, "Well, if I get there, how am I going to get him to tell me where they were at? He was going to want something." And old Mr. Freeswell pulled out a little old stick. He says, "Now, Jack, you take that, and you tell that fella that you will unthaw that cider for him. You just put a tap on it, and it'll thaw right out, and he'll tell you for certain where he was hiding at and seeing them girls, and he'll take you to the very place because he wants that cider." Jack said, "I'll do it." So he put that stick in his pocket, and it was cold and miserable, but the next morning he got up and made his way to that fella's house. He was still out in the barn because his old woman was still upset with him, and he hadn't said that what he'd done was wrong or anything yet, but he was starting to think about saying that maybe he wasn't right to start with when Jack showed up. Why, when he come in, Jack said, "Oh, I hear that you know where some red-headed girls are at." And he says, "Oh, law, it's already spreading. I'm going to be in trouble. Everybody's going to think I'm a terrible person. Oh, no, I'm going to have to let my old woman know she's right and start telling everybody that I didn't see nothing. I shrunk down in that log as soon as I noticed it was them girls. I just don't know what to do." He says, "Is there anything I can do to help you with? Maybe you can get out there and show me where them girls are." He goes, "Oh, no, there's no way I'd go out there again. Well, I'd just get in more trouble." And Jack says, "Oh, well, I wish I had something to drink, and then that way you and I could talk about it." And he goes, "Oh, I wish I could have had something to drink too, but all my cider's all froze up." He goes, "Oh, it is? Well, I tell you what, if you show me where them girls come, I'll be the very one to help you thaw that out." He goes, "Oh, Jack, I've been trying with fires and coals and everything. I can't get it to thaw for nothing." He says, "Well, let me give it a try." He even had one little old mug of cider that was frozen like a block of ice. Jack tapped it with that stick, and it just turned right into liquid. Even warmed up a little bit. Why, that old man grabbed it, and he sipped on that warm cider, and he says, "Oh, that sure is good. Had a good crop of apples this last year. This is nice cider, Jack. You want me to get you some?" Jack says, "Oh, that's okay." He says, "You just finish that up there, and I guess I'll be on my way." He goes, wait a minute, Jack. I got barrels of cider out here, and you need to thaw that out too." And he says, "Well, I guess I could help you, but, I like to know where that place is first." So that boy decided that he'd take Jack up and show him where he hid. And sure enough, he got up on the other side, and where he had gotten into that log, you could just look over down to the edge of the river, and you couldn't really see much. Once someone come off into the river, you couldn't see nothing at all. He just seen the tops of their heads once he finally confessed to what he really saw. But he did see them girls. And so Jack went on back with him, and he unthawed all of his cider, and Jack got himself a little bit of warmth from one and made his way up there. He decided he'd just wait around till them girls showed up again. Why, Jack got down there, and he got closer, and he got down by that river, and by that river there was a big old tree that had fallen over in the storm, and Jack got up in behind it, and he just laid down, covered leaves all over him, and just waited. And while he was a-waiting there, sure enough, he heard stuff coming up through the woods. Sounded like a whole herd of things. Jack peeked out, and sure enough, it was wolves, just like that man said. 3 great big old wolves. They got up there, and they started a-sniffing and snarling, and Jack knew he was in trouble. And then that wolf just stood right up and reached up and got a zipper and pulled it down, and that wolf skin come pouring off, and right on the inside was a beautiful red-headed girl, her clothes all on the inside, and the other 2 did the same, and he could tell by a looking at them, peeking out through the little bit of leaves that he had just sort of covering up his eyes, that they was 3 sisters. Why, they put their wolf skins on that very same log, and they went on down into the river to get themselves all bathed up for the day. And while they was down there, Jack reached out and he grabbed the skin of the youngest one. He pulled it down in there with him. They was down there in the river, and he couldn't see nothing up over that log or anything. But when they came up, why, them 2 older sisters put their wolf skins on. We'll say, we'll see you at home. Daddy wants us to get there, and I don't want to get in trouble being late. And the littlest one was saying, I can't find my skin. It's right around here. Got to be. He said, oh, it might fall down in the leaves. You go looking around for it, but we ain't going to get in trouble because you can't keep hold of your skins. Why, them other 2 girls took off as they turned into wolves, shooting off through the trees and the wolves out there, and they went on their way. And that last little one searched and searched and searched, and she was so upset. She didn't know what she was going to do. She just sat down and said, oh, I'm going to be in so much trouble. My daddy is so hard. When I get there late, he's going to think something has happened, and I don't even want to think about it. He'll probably lock me away. Why, Jack stood up from behind that log, and he just dangled that old wolf skin out, and he says, you wouldn't be looking for this, would you? She stood up and turned, and she reached out for it, but Jack pulled it on back. Why, whenever she tried to fight, he goes, wait a second, I'll give it to you, but first things first, I'll give it to you if you take me to your house. I got some business with your daddy. She says, oh no. If I took you to my house, my daddy'd be awful mad. Why, he'd be so upset. No way, not gonna do that. Well, what if you take me up to the gate? No, I couldn't do that. He'd know I'd be the one that was a-helping you. No, I couldn't do that. Well, couldn't you at least show me where the road was that leads up to your house? She goes, oh, we ain't got no roads going to our house. No. But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll take you a little bit, and I'll show you the valley between 2 mountains where we live at. Now, you'll have to find us from there, but at least you'll be coming on your own. Will that do? Jack said, well, I guess that'll do. And so he handed it to her, and she put on that wolf skin, and whenever she did, she plopped down on all 4. And he says, well, what about me? How am I going to go? And she says, oh, that's easy. You'll just have to become like me. She reached up with her paw, and Jack put his hand out into it, and she reached over with her other paw and put one little scratch across Jack's arm. And when he did, he just fairly started a growing hair, and he just turned right into a wolf himself. She says, now you follow along with me. This will only work this one time, and if you ever pull off this skin, it won't ever go back on you like it does for us, because you're not from the same family. Jack said, that's fair enough. She goes, you keep up and follow me. And they just took off running through the woods. Jack couldn't believe it. He was having the best time. He smelt smells he'd never smelled before. He thought thoughts he'd never thought before. He could run so fast and so furious, and things were going good. Why, they went down trails and they went up over all kinds of logs and around trees and down through creeks and up on the sides of the mountain and down for the fruit. And they finally got up on a big old bluff, and there was a looking out, and she stopped. He says, now, Jack, you just look out through there. You see where those two hills come together and there's a little saddle in between them? You just follow right on to the other side and you'll come down in the valley where my daddy lives. And she says, but now it's time for you to get on your own. And I know it'll take you a few days to get there, but you can't go like this. No, my daddy would figure it out. And she reached over with her paw and she hooked on with her claw and just unzipped old Jack. And whenever that wolf skin come pawing off, he just turned right back into himself, fully dressed like he normally was. She took off and was gone.